Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, October the 20th, 2025, and today we are talking about our November garden plans, offering some thoughts on flail mowing and some critical farmer things I'm terrible at, and it isn't just avoiding prepositions at the end of my sentences. So let's do it. That is all the water I left myself to work with today. That was not smart. All right. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all had nice weekends. For me, just like that, soccer season is over. We did the tournament weekend this weekend, and I had such a great season with the kids this year, and I'm going to miss them in the routine of practices and games all winter. Our kids will still be relatively busy with other things they've got themselves involved with, which is going to be fun to actually just get to sit and watch them do their thing rather than being involved with it personally. So that's exciting. It's been a challenging season, on the soccer front because of the added responsibility I took on over at the soccer organization, but yesterday was all the championship games for our tournament. And I know this is a farming podcast and we'll get there, but I have to say that just getting to know so many of the kids in the league and seeing them, just like have fun yesterday and succeed at this and love this sport just really makes it worth the mountain of labor it requires to run a recreational soccer league. Again, I think it's important to engage with your community, and soccer is how I've found my version of that. So shouts to that, and shouts to all the coaches, refs, and sports volunteers out there, giving kids a safe, fun place to go. It has a really deep importance for me as a child who constantly moved around the country and needed these sorts of leagues to have some friends and some stability. And you may never realize what it will mean to these kids in the future. So yeah, anyway, farming stuff. Every month, I like to take at least one segment and just talk about what we're doing on the farm right now and for around the next month or so. This will, in fact, pair nicely with Wednesday's episode because it will be almost the exact opposite, and that will make sense. Wednesday. So anyway, I like to just calibrate folks on what we are doing here on the farm, and then we can all compare and contrast notes and plans. For us, November is really the month of chill. That's both literal and figurative, I guess. It's not quite winter yet, so chill describes it nicely, but there is no more soccer. We pare down our sales outlets, and we often take some time to relax, clean up, and maybe even go on a little trip or two. The kids are obviously still in school, so we are a bit limited on what we can do and how far we can travel and for how long, but I imagine some more hikes in this next month. Plus, of course, we will be at CFSA for that event in South Carolina in mid-November, which we will link in the show notes like we do. On the farm side of things, though, we will be, spending the month like cleaning up some areas, and the leaves collected by our neighbors should start trickling in soon. Those I plan to use as mulch around our strawberries and even work a bit on expanding our strawberry situation to another tunnel by taking the suckers off the plants that are existing in one tunnel and rooting them and transplanting them into another one. I've never actually used tunnel space for strawberries, so I'm a little nervous about how all of it, but if it works, it's going to be a nice early treat for customers. If it doesn't work, it's going to be a nice early waste of tunnel space, so everyone wins who's not named Farmer Jesse. But yeah, cleanup is definitely the name of the game in November. Although the daylight dives like mad to a near trickle of sunshine, it's, and this is a pro tip, a lot easier to move stuff around and clean stuff up when it is not frozen to the ground. So it's best to not wait until late December or January to start doing those things. The challenge, of course, is that the grasses and other plants are still quite tall until we start to get a lot of freezes and thaws, which is basically all we get in the winter here. Doesn't really stay frozen, it just freezes and thaws. And then it creates mud, which is another thing we get a lot of in the winter. When that happens, though, is when those taller plants start to break down and you can finally find all the tools and such that were left lying around. So November and December have a fun little treasure hunt vibe to them. Of course, this is also the time when the sides of the tunnels start to go up and down as we attempt to harden off the lettuces inside without killing them. I'm generally in favor of not covering the plants until in the tunnel until we start to get to those like mid 20 degree Fahrenheit levels. That would be like -3 or 4 Celsius. We get a couple dips like that in November, but December and January are where those become somewhat of the norm. We will still be harvesting through November and even into December, but less and less in the field. The fields become, like mostly cover crops, and the tunnels are where the food lives, like kale and lettuces and spinach and that sort of stuff. I see some nice cold dips in the forecast this week, so we will let those little frosts hit our lettuce out in the field and then cover them next week to kind of, it gets them a bit hardened off and it kills any of those summer weeds that may still be lingering. And then we cover them up with row cover, and so they will make it all the way through until mid-December or so. Some years we've made it all the way to January. Anyway, that's the plan for us. Garlic is in, sweet potatoes are out, soccer season is done. It's time to take a breath and start scheming on next year. What does your November look like? Let us know. Otherwise, otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk about one of my favorite farm tools, BRB.
Hey friends, welcome to my backyard garden, Zone 7B, Virginia. I've got some cover crops started. I probably started them way too early, but it's a learning experience. So wish me luck.
Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. Renewal season is here, and the work you put in now is what brings members back next year. Ari Memar, founder of Farmhand and a guest you've heard on this podcast, has worked with regenerative farmers to create a playbook that turns renewal season into a growth season. One farmer, Melanie at Shake Fork Community Farm, brought in $40,000 in renewals in just 2 weeks using this strategy. Now, Ari and Melanie are sharing the exact approach in a free live workshop and downloadable playbook. Watch on demand and get the playbook at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Earl, who had written as a sort of addendum to an older question, quote, any discussion of the Flail mower and its benefits would be great perhaps on a different show, end quote. And sure, let's talk about the Flail mower on this different show because it is absolutely one of my favorite tools. And frankly, it's the thing that I use our BCS walk behind tractor for the most, and it's not even close. Honestly, in some ways, it's the only reason we keep the BCS around because we don't use it for as much like tillage and that sort of stuff now that the farm is all set up. Again, this is one of those segments that this show, this particular podcast, allows me to do that just doing one video per week would have never really allowed me to do because an all Flail mower video would simply have never generated the revenue it needed to make it worth making, if that makes sense. Between our sponsors and you amazing Patreon members, though, we can justify these sort of nerdy segments, so shouts to that. Anyway, let's start with what a flail mower is and how it differs from other mowers. A flail mower, sometimes referred to as a mulching mower, is a mower that chops the material it mows and drops it right back down instead of shooting it out the back or out the side like other mowers. The idea here is to chop and drop the organic material right back down where it was grown, either to use it as a mulch or to work it into the soil potentially later, or rake it off if need be. The mower itself is nice because it's clean and doesn't throw the material onto the bed beside you. We use a 30-inch flail mower. I think it's from Berta for our BCS walk behind tractor, but there are many brands and versions out there for other tractors and other scales. I have, in fact, always wanted a flail mower with a collector on the back to clear crops from a bed, save the material, and then compost that. I can sort of do that with our electric push mower, but if the crop is woody at all, it's a no-go because that thing it's not very powerful. It's meant for mowing lawns, not crops really. Also, that flail mower collector, if you had one for like a big enough tractor with enough horsepower, could be used to harvest from pastures and compost that material as well. Use it as a mulch. So instead of hay, you'd get haylage that you could use to compost. But those flail mower collectors are pretty pricey and really only available for larger tractors. At least to my knowledge, I haven't seen one for a BCS. I suppose I could get a collector for our riding mower, but the prices on those are a little intimidating as well. And I don't really have anywhere to store something that big. But anyway, some uses for me of the flail mower are to mow cover crops when they have got to that milk stage or just like when I'm ready to get rid of them. And the milk stage, just as a reminder, is when the plant is most ready to terminate it, right? That's when it's putting its energy into its progeny. So it's not expecting to just be smashed to the ground or mowed. If that cover crop is really thick though, if it's a really thick stand, it can bog the mower down. So you have to have a somewhat power. We have a 13 horsepower. BCS seems to work fine, but you do have to have a fairly powerful mower. And when it is too thick, what I do is I just kind of push down on the handlebars and mow it really high. And then I come back and I mow it low again. So I just kind of do it twice and then I'll maybe do it again the next week if need be. That doesn't always terminate it just on its own very well, but you could then cover it with compost or a tarp or whatever and wait a bit before you plant it. I will also use the flail mower for bed flips. So I have my flail mower set so that the blades of the flail mower skim right above the soil surface. This can terminate lettuce to the point that as long as the bed is not weedy, I can plant something immediately following without really any soil work. Now, it takes a little practice and you would have to be conscious of which crops work for this system and which don't, but it does reduce the time of certain bed flips by many, many multiples, even though you will have to come back out and cut some of those, ornery little lettuces that come back. I always say that my most common weed is the previous crop. I also like to use the flail mower when I'm broadcasting seeds to just lightly cover them. So let's say I'm broadcasting like a cover crop, then I'll just kind of run over top of it like I did last week. If you saw that episode where I talked about how we did the sweet potatoes, we harvest the sweet potatoes. Then I broadcast the cover crop seed, and then I just mow all the residual sweet potato vines, and it kicks up a little bit of dust, and it covers the seeds effectively. To be clear, that's imperfect, but it works in a pinch, a lazy pinch. The Flail mower does not produce the most aesthetically pleasing mow for, say, a lawn, so it doesn't really double as a lawnmower very well, nor is it the most efficient for mowing a large area when it's on a walk-behind tractor, because it's kind of hard to turn it around. But for bed tops, it's great. There is no perfect tool in the world, but the Flail mower is the closest thing to being perfect. It just does its job, and it does it really well. Anyway, let me know your thoughts or questions about this tool, and we will tackle those on Friday. Otherwise, one last quick break, and then we're going to talk about some farming things that I'm not very good at. Be right back.
So my garden is just winding down, but this here is what I really wanted to talk about. This block was a total failure. It got way overtaken with weeds. It was just unmanageable. I'm gonna drag that tarp over here and just tarp it next season and get a nice fresh start. And I guess this block just got neglected, so restarting.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
All right, so one of the things I like to do with this show is just be human publicly. Like, there are things we are all good at and not good at, and I think if we do not share those things that we don't excel at, and the only things we share are things that we're good at, like dad jokes, then we give the impression that there are perfect people in the world and adroit at all of farming's vibrant nuances. That such person does not exist. For me, I think it isn't just about sharing our shortcomings, though. It is also about learning to identify them. That itself is a skill. In some ways, that's probably the harder part than fessing up to them. But if you can identify the things you are good at and not good at, you can either improve on those deficiencies or bring someone in to fill them for you, especially in a business context. Can you hear I feel like I have like coaching voice. Now, I did a similar segment like this back in February, and I will probably do another one in the future, only because sometimes the list needs some updating or just grows, or it was just incomplete. It's probably all of those things. In that list in February, I talked about how I am good at making a business plan, but bad at revisiting said business plan. I also discussed how I'm not always the most focused person. I tend to just follow whatever whim I have in that time, in that moment, and I discussed that as well. My love of experiments, but my poor experimental design was another sort of deficiency that I discussed. And frankly, all of that more or less remains relatively true, if I'm being honest. But the problem with that last time that I did this sort of self-examination is that it was right before the season started. So time to work on a better strategy kind of disappeared because I was busy all summer. Another reason that perhaps now, headed into the winter, is the best time to revisit our deficiencies. I think one of the big things that I've identified myself this year, and maybe this just goes in the focus bucket or the poor business plan revisiting bucket or the being a Libra bucket, I just can't decide which direction to take the farm business. When we pulled back from farmers markets, whatever that was, 2 years ago, we did so without a really fleshed out version of what that would look like. We had some good ideas and we pursued some of those, but we've kind of found ourselves waffling on which markets to focus on, which ones make the most sense for us. Therefore, we sort of end up, focusing on none of them very well. I think part of that lack of commitment stems from wanting to find the perfect balance where we, make a living doing the work that we spend a lot of money to do, and also getting to spend our weekends and evenings with our children. So that's not always easy with small farming, but it's not impossible with things like restaurant sales, where you're delivering those during the week and you can do most of the work during, your weekdays. The size and topography of our farm, though, makes most wholesale like that a little bit tougher to justify because the prices tend to be so low. And see, I'm waffling in real time here. we could make some investments to improve our production, but I'm also, while I'm listing, other deficiencies, a little bit hesitant with investment because I know how whimsical I can be personally. I don't trust the markets, and that's not because they're untrustworthy, but I think COVID may have scarred me a little bit on that front, not gonna lie. And again, squirrel. There you have it. Some things I need to work on this winter, them things that I'm not particularly good at. There are obviously a lot of little technical things I'm not great at. So perhaps those could be their own little segment down the line. But these bigger picture personality traits are often the ones that I think hold me back the most as a farmer. Yeah. So what say you? Are there deficiencies that hold you back or that you've identified that you feel like you could work on? Let me know. Otherwise, we're done here Monday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can learn more about how to do that in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. I think. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soul Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of October, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Damian Schroeder. What's up, Damian? Daydream Farm. This one is in Hebrew, and I think it says Tomer Boju, but that's what Google tells me it says. So shouts to Tomer. And Ryan Fiore. Awesome. Thanks for all the signups this weekend, y'all. All right. So in this week's story, Mia, we're going to follow Mia. Mia is a podcaster. Specifically, Mia runs a show called Nerds, where she literally just calls nerds and asks them what they do. And then she geeks out with them over it, which is very fun to listen to. It reminds me a little bit of the podcast Ologies, if I'm being honest. But the difference is that in Mia's world, there is no ology. So she's kind of the one that invented this one. But anyway, so that's neither here nor there. What's important is that one day Mia is talking to a man on the phone who is an ecologist who is studying a rare toad in the South whose populations have been declining more rapidly than climatic shifts or habitat destruction could account for. Then suddenly the lights go out and the line goes dead, and right in the middle of a conversation, Mia tries for hours to get back a hold of this ecologist, but to no avail. For days, she stresses about this, both for the ecologist's safety, obviously, but also because, she has a half-finished podcast episode. So she decides to go find that ecologist. She's going to drive down there. And that is for tomorrow on Toady, which actually, when you think about it, is today, but just with the D in the wrong place, which is an irrelevant fact, but it is a fact. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you then. Bye.